Welcome back to the ETF Inspector. It's Tuesday, June 3rd, almost 8:30 at night, and this will be the coverage video for YieldMax Fund's ULTY, which is the Ultra Option Income Strategy Fund, collection of close to 30 different underlying stocks that they buy positions in, and then they sell calls off of that, as well as LFGY, crypto industry and tech portfolio option income ETF. There's definitely a smaller amount, maybe half as many stocks within that one, but same idea. They're both income strategies, so they are trying to make money with options, and that's what they distribute out. Both are weekly payers. So if you're not a subscriber already, please go ahead and click the subscribe button. I make videos pretty much every day. Most of the time ULTY and LFGY, but there's a handful of, I do like a week look ahead, a Wednesday and a Friday recap for a couple of other individual funds too. All right, also on X, so ETF Inspector or ETF_Inspector1, where I repost stuff from YieldMax, and then I also post when videos are being uploaded. All right, so pretty big day, pretty big green day for the most part in the market. Let's go through. As far as ULTY itself, went up 1.3% to $6.24. The big winner, I believe, was CoreWeave, up 25+%, as well as Dollar General went up 15%. Let's see if we had any other real big ones. I don't think so. Biggest loser, 5% on Oklo. Looks like that's going to be it. Yep. So for ULTY, biggest winner, what did we say? CoreWeave, 25%, and Oklo, biggest loser, 5%. As far as LFGY is concerned, it was also a big day for that, up over 2.5% to $39.86. Let's see. Core Scientific, almost 8%. That's going to be the big winner, and it looks like GameStop is the, call it, biggest loser, 1.75%. So 2 days in a row where the biggest loser was in the 1%. So not bad there. All right, we'll get into the more detailed breakdown. We'll start with ULTY. We'll start with the trades. That way we don't have to talk about any options on the holdings that got changed out today. So they spent a lot of money today. Dollar General, we started. Oh, I'm sorry. Gray is stuff we already talked about down here. But we sold out of Dollar General today after buying into it yesterday. So appreciate all the changes I had to make to my spreadsheets and formulas just to take it right back out the very next day. But that's the only thing we sold. And then bought into I think 4 new ones: CrowdStrike, Lululemon, Broadcom, and Oracle, and then also added to our position in Upstart. So we don't count this as options income, options trading. So I don't include that in the trading profit and loss. So AVGO is the ticker for Broadcom. Since we bought shares of that, we immediately started selling calls. So sold 400 because that was the maximum, because there's 40,000 shares, so we can sell 400 contracts at 100 shares per contract. So everything expiring 6/6 for the most part, with the exception of Oracle. So we sold $270 calls and bought calls to complete the credit spread, just to have protection in case actually, no, I'm sorry, it's not a credit spread, it's a collar that's protecting the shares themselves with a put at 220. So they profited $132,000 on that. Similarly, opened up CrowdStrike with 20,000 shares, so we were able to sell 200 calls at $510 strike price, along with the puts that we purchased to protect it, and it was a $105,000 gain. CoreWeave, obviously, you saw hurt. I mean, anytime a stock goes up 25% in a day and you're selling calls on it, it's going to be a bad day. So overall, rolled still to this week, but closed out the 118s and 133s and sold 140s and 160s. So lost over $2.5 million on CoreWeave. So that's probably going to put a pretty big damper in our trading for the week. Dollar General, we closed out. Right, the stock just was not working out for them after one day, so they're right back out of it, and it hurt them. So they had to pay $738,000 to get out of that position. Robinhood, they bought to close their $67 calls, moved them up to $75. Again, obviously that's going to hurt in the same week. It went against them, so they spent over $1 million rolling that still to the same week. Lululemon bought new shares, so we went ahead and started selling options on it. 360 is the strike price for the calls, collected $118,000. Oracle, same thing. The only difference with them is their calls are sold out till next Friday, not this Friday. 177.50 is the call strike price, and they collected a total of $126,000 after purchasing their puts. And again, we added to the upstart position that we had. So along with it, sold calls at 52, bringing in a total of 53, or a net profit of 53,000. So all in all, today's trading, they lost $3.8 million. CoreWeave just went too hard against them, as well as Robinhood. All right, but with that being said, when everything goes up, the value goes up, and that's why the price of the fund went up decent today. So I had a request to get a little more color coding and color into the text boxes, the headers, so we know what we're looking at, or it just helps them stand out. So hopefully we like this. All right, so we'll just go through. Stock ticker AI, C3.ai. Closed at 25.67. It was a 2.8% increase. The calls at 27 are still over 5% out of the money. If you're new here, this whole video is we're just looking at everything that the money's doing. When you buy a normal stock in a company, who knows what your money went towards, and there's just so much you can't even track on a day-to-day basis. With different costs and stuff. When you put your money in these funds, you can see exactly where the dollars go. They buy shares, then they sell options off of it, and you're trying to make profits off of it. So we are just looking deep dive into all the data that is possibly available for us to see how things are going. So they have right here, you've got your shares of the stock, the value of the stock. These are all as of close yesterday. They won't be updated until after I get new information tomorrow morning. Everything over here that we'll be talking about today is today's closing, the increase from it, and where the options now stand after the change today. And there was a comment about maybe people get confused if I say lost money or made money. So I'm going to say increased in value or decreased in value, okay? Because if you buy stock and it goes up, you didn't win or money. If it goes down, you didn't lose money. It just increased or decreased in value as long as you don't sell. So hopefully that clears some things up for people. Color coding, right? Red means in the money, and when we're selling options, we did not want them to end up in the money because then they cost more to close a lot of times than we collected buying them. So that red's bad. Yellow means it's in our favor, but it's getting close, within 5%, and green means it's greater than 5% away, and generally those start getting cheap to close out. If there's yellow over here, this is just my way of showing myself we don't need to talk about the options because they got changed in today's trading. AST Space Mobile went up 4.27% to 25.18, an increase of $489,000 in value, and that took their $25 calls just into the money by 0.7%. So hopefully they'll come down a little bit, or at least not go up much more the rest of the week, so that time decay will eat away at that premium. Coinbase had a big day, up almost 5% to 258.91, an increase in value of $560,000. Their calls are still out of the money, but only by 0.4%. 260 is where we need this stock to trade below by the end of the week. CoreWeave, biggest winner today, 25%. So although we lost, what do we say, $2.5 million having to change out those options, we gained $3.6 million in value. So anytime the stock blows through, it hurts on the trading side of it, but it always makes more on the actual position side of it. So 150.48, these are no longer the options that we have. We got new ones. Dollar General, we don't care about it because we closed out all those positions and sold the stocks, so no worries. First Solar, up 6.5%, another one with a big day. 159.37 was the closing price. That took their shares, or their options, 1.1% into the money, and it was an increase of 437,000. We need them to get back down under 157.5 to be able to end up collecting the best amount of premium. FTAI Aviation was a new one from yesterday. Went up 2.5% today. Already went straight through the calls. I'm not sure why they had sold them so tight, unless they just got it in the middle of the day, and the stock just continued to go up after that. We don't get to see what time they made their trades. But it went up to 123.35, increase in value of 270,000 overall to the fund, and they now have calls at 122 and 123 that are both in the money by 1% and 0.2%. Hims and Hers lost 3.59% to 54.73. It was a decrease in value of 408,000 to the fund, and their calls are 9.6% out of the money. Robinhood went up 5.5% to 71.72, increase in value of 811,000, and these options got changed out. IonQ lost 1.87% to 39.81. It was a decrease in value of $247,000, and the calls are 9.2% out of the money. Mara Holdings up 6.75%, so another big move. 15.33 was the closing price. That took the calls into the money by 2.1%, and it increased the value by $606,000. Marvell Technology up 1.45 to 62.36. Another one. These were already in the money, so they just went further in the money. Today up to 2.18%, and it's a $111,000 increase in value. MicroStrategy, or just, I don't know why it still comes up as that if they change their name to Strategy, but MSTR up over 4% to 387.43. Luckily, these were pretty far out of the money because they're still 4.5% out of the money at 405. Increase of $576,000 in value. NVIDIA up 2.8%, increase of basically 500,000. Stock went up to 141.22, and we're still 1.97% away from our call strike prices. Hopefully you guys can't hear my dog barking in the background. Oklo lost over 5% to 49.77. That's a decrease in value of 800,000, and their calls at 60 are now 20+% out of the money. Palantir up 0.86% to 133.17. They were already just barely in the money. Now they're just a little further. $149,000 increase in value. And they've got more calls that are still out of the money by 2% at 136. Reddit lost 1.11% or 125,000 in value. Stock ended at 110.86, and the calls at 117 are 5.5% out of the money. Rigetti lost about 1.8% to $12.04. 7.97% out of the money on those $13 calls. 10,000 of them now. 10,000 contracts. $220,000 loss in value. RH up over 5.5% to 176.72. Another one that was luckily way in the money. If you watched videos the last couple of days, we were almost all green with a little bit of yellow. Now we got lots of yellow and red. 4.69% out of the money, so we're still doing good. $189,000 increase in value. SMCI up 4.83% to 43.19. That took those calls at 42.50, 1.6% in the money, and it increased the value by $537,000. So on these that are going like slightly into the money, it seems like what they're Their plan is to just give it time, right? They're not panicking. It's only Tuesday. They're hoping things kind of calm down, pull back a little, so they don't make a rush decision and pay top dollar. Because right now you're paying extra for how far it's in the money, and then extra for how many days are left on the trade. So at least if time decays, you close this same thing out on Friday, it's going to be a lot cheaper than closing it today. Snowflake lost about 0.5% or 45,000 in value. Stock ended at 209.15, and the calls are just slightly out of the money. There's only 85 cents to go. TNA, that's the first triple leveraged fund, up 4.77% to $30.77. That took both sets of calls at 30 and 30.50 into the money. Again, this one obviously it's triple leverage, so it can have just as bad of a day as a good day, real easy. But a $500,000 increase in value. TQQQ, the other triple leverage fund, up 2.33% to 73.28. Another one pushed into the money by 0.38%, $409,000 increase in value. Tesla up almost 0.5% to 344.27. Their call is still 3% out of the money, and it increased in value of 72,000 yesterday. So you'll see there's not a gray. So I gray just to kind of have a separation where the actual positions are and the value. We started an option spread, put spread on United Health, but we don't actually own any shares of it. So this one looks a little different. But the stock ended at 301.22, which meant first day on the trade, and it already dropped into the money because we needed it to stay above 312.50. So just getting beat up a little bit today. Upstart up 6.43% to $50.98. $680,000 value added to the fund. They're now 5.85% in the money on the $48 calls. Vertiv up 2.85%, still just slightly out of the money. 112.34 is the closing price. 113 is the strike price. $223,000 increase in value. And finally, Vistra Corp, 5% increase to 176 even. It was a $597,000 increase in value, and those calls are now 3.4% in the money. So overall, increase of over $11 million in value for the fund. So that's why the ULTY price went up, obviously over 1% today. There was also an increase in shares of 1.5 million, bringing us up to just under 60 million outstanding shares now. And that will be updated tomorrow, but obviously it was a $368,000 or $368 million fund. We added 11 million in value, but we lost some money on the trading, and all of these options play into it too. But we're getting in the 380 range. We're getting close to 380. All right, let's quickly move over to LFGY. So we're done with ULTY. We're switching over to LFGY. Again, if you're new here, sorry, it's a lot of data, so there's not really a faster way to give it to you. At least you didn't have to download it, put it in spreadsheets, put formulas in, all that good stuff. So just sit back, relax, maybe watch it, listen to it on your commute or something. And there's a dad joke coming at the end, just to break up all this information. So we already talked about Monday's trades yesterday. That's why they're grayed out. So we've now, I forgot to change the size. There we go. We don't go through individual trades on them except for if it's like closeout day. So you don't see anything that says BC. That would stand for buy to close. So we didn't close anything. We just SS, sell short. So these are selling to open. So as you can see, they basically just added some contracts to almost every position they have. Every once in a while there's a buy. That means they've got a call spread as opposed to just the calls themselves. So they have call spread on Clean Spark. They've got a call spread on MBTX and on Melly or Mercado Libre. But it was pretty much just a selling day as far as options, so it's going to be a win. I actually forgot to put it over here. I got it at the top. So nothing major. Made $37,000. But I mean, we're spreading $37,000 between over 3 million shares, so that doesn't really amount to much. Made 18,000 yesterday, made 37,000 today. Not a lot, but it's better than losing. All right, so we'll go over. And also, if you didn't watch the other video, tomorrow's declaration day. So early in the morning, I want to say 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning, they put out the declarations for the distributions. I'll repost them on X, and then I'll talk about them in tomorrow's video. All right, so LFGY positions. Start out with BitDeer, up 1.18% to 1291. They have calls sold at 1350 and 16. They are 4.5 and 24% out of the money. Increase in value of 49,000. CleanSpark up 6.97% to 921. Calls at 950 and 10 that are still 3 and 8.5% out of the money. $323,000 increase in value. Coinbase again almost 5% increase to 258.91. Over $700,000 added to the value. Still just under the 260 strike price, 0.42% away. Core Scientific, I think we said they were the big winner over here on LFGY, up almost 8% to 1180. That took their calls at 1150, 2.5% in the money, and it increased the value of the fund by $482,000. Galaxy Digital up 3% to $19.13. These calls are still 30% out of the money. Surprised they didn't close those out and bring them closer, but we'll just keep on taking the win. $61,000 increase in value. GameStop, this was the big loser over here. 1.76% loss. $30.10 was the closing price. Their calls are 2.99 and 26% out of the money, but really this one, the $31, 2.99 is really the only one that matters. I mean, if 1,600 contracts go against you, it won't really matter if you won on 86 contracts. But that lost $92,000, not lost, decreased in value, $92,000. Robinhood went up 5.5% to $71.72. That took the calls 3.79% into the money, so we need that back down under 69 to have the maximum profit. But $364,000 increase in value. Hut 8 Corp up similarly, 6% to 1606. Still 2.74% out of the money and almost $300,000 value added. iShares Bitcoin Trust, or IBIT, up 1.75% to $60.40. They don't sell options on this, so we just track the value in general. $200,000 increase. Mara, again, big win, 6.75% up to $15.33. Calls, it's just this one here, 1.1% out of the money. They have 6,000 contracts of it and an increase of $595,000. MBTX, similar to United Health on ULTY, they don't own the shares. They just trade a credit spread on it. So closed at 251.63, and their 260 calls are still 3.3% out of the money. We don't really track if it went up or down because there is no change in market value of the shares because we don't have any shares. So all we care about is where our options are sitting. Mercado Libre, or MELI, up 0.34% to $2,602.26. That seems crazy for it to jump basically at a number that high, almost right to where our strikes are. So we've got 24 cents left to go on a $2,600 strike, but it went up 19,000 in value, and we are 0.01% out of the money. MSTR up over 4% to 387.43. That took their 385s just in the money by 0.6%, and their 387.50s are 7 cents out of the money, but over $500,000 increase in value. NU Holdings lost a fraction to 11.99. I think they were 12 yesterday, so they lost a penny. Still 4.25% out of the money on their calls and a $3,000 loss in value. Nvidia up 2.8% to 141.22. It was an $89,000 increase in value, and the calls are slightly out of the money by 0.55%. Opera up 0.33% to $18.18. Their calls are still safely 10% out of the money. I say safely. Tomorrow they'll go up 20%, and I'll look like an idiot. Increase in value of $16,000. PayPal up a little over 0.5% to $71.33. Calls are still slightly out of the money. We've only got 67 cents to go. $19,000 increased value. Riot Platforms, another big winner for over here. Almost 6.5% increase to $9.03. That brought their $9 calls, which are the majority, 5,600 contracts compared to 144, 0.33% in the money. So they started the day much better than they ended it. So these would have been 9.5 cents to close at the start of today. Now we'll see tomorrow morning what they ended up, but it won't be pretty. Tesla up 0.46% to 344.27. Their 372.50 calls are still 8.2% out of the money, and they increased by 26,000 in value. And finally, Block or XYZ up 2.83% to 63.51. Calls are still 0.7% out of the money, and an $81,000 increase in value. So overall, over $4 million increase in value to the fund. There was a small increase in shares, 50,000 since yesterday, or through yesterday. So 3,025,000 outstanding shares. Again, you got to ignore this NAV because it won't update until I get all the updated values of holdings tomorrow morning. But we know this will be up slightly, and really it basically always ends within a couple cents. So it's going to be, I'll call it probably 2 cents away, if not closer to where it ended, 39.86. Okay, so now you're all caught up on how your money did if you're in LFGY or if you're in ULTY. And tomorrow's declaration day, so you're going to find out how much of a distribution you're going to get this Friday. And obviously it's not just distribution for the weekly payers. I want to say it's Group D, but I can't remember for sure. So time for the dad joke of the day. Before I do, just want to thank you. Thanks for watching. Thanks for everything. This has been pretty exciting. I've only been doing this a little over a month, and we're looking at 539 subscribers. So I'm glad you guys like it. Sometimes I feel like this stuff's boring and nobody's going to like it, but it seems like somebody does. So, okay, dad joke of the day. It's not great. It's off the calendar. It's kind of cheesy. What did the judge say when the skunk walked into the courtroom? Odor in the court. Okay. Hope you did well trading today. Hope you do even better tomorrow. Talk to you in tomorrow's video.